Chief Darren, right in the back. Follow his directions. And that's not a joke. That's a real. That's what we're going to do if there's an issue tonight. Okay, we have a nice flag here. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, so we've got this PowerPoint presentation. I don't think Sheena Regulo, our finance director, is here right now, but she always does a great job putting this together every year. And so this is going to be the overview of our fiscal year 2023-2024 somehow proposed budget. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. I can barely see it from here myself. But it started, as always, with the Board of Selectmen going over this line by line, coming up with a budget. Board of Finance then had virtual and in-person meetings. I think we only had one virtual meeting, unless I'm forgetting one virtual meeting. And I don't even want to know how many in-person workshops we had in March and April, but a lot. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom, the changes from the Selectmen's budget that they provided to us. When we did our work, so we have two budgets. I think everyone knows that, but we have two budgets. We have the operating budget and the capital budget. So we looked at the operating budget, and after all of our deliberations, we took almost $77,000 off of that. And then for the Selectmen's capital budget, we took almost $30,000 off of that after our deliberations. So then, the last two lines show how that differ from last year. These are budgeting lines, not actual lines. So for the operating budget, it was up $175,000 over last year. For people have different interests. One of my interests is always the mill rate. A mill right now, based on our grand list, one mill is about $832,000. So that's, I'm not the mathematician, so anybody wants to hop in and tell me, that's about 0.2 mils. The operating budget is up by about 0.2 mils on the town budget side. The capital budget is down dramatically. It's $1 million less than it was last year. And that does not directly relate to the mill rate. It does in a way, but it doesn't directly relate to the mill rate the way the operating budget would. And hopefully we'll get to some more about that in a second. Here's a graph you're all probably familiar with, except for those of you who may be new and haven't been here before. It's the 75-25 school district and town budget. So these are all proposals, keep in mind. Our proposed town budget, $5.8 million, and the proposed school budget, $17.8 million. And that's, just so we're clear, that's our assessment, the Killingworth assessment, based upon our percentage of students, which is about 60-40, 62-38, something like that. They have dramatically more students in Haddam than we do in Killingworth, and we're assessed based on that. So for us, that turns out to be a 75-25 split between school budget and town budget. And I think everyone knows this, but I'll say it just in case you don't. When the selectmen are deliberating and when we're deliberating, we don't deliberate over that 75%. We go to school board meetings and we get information and we make persuasive comments, but we're not part of that process. We're only part of the 25% process. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. This may be illustrative to some of you. It never is really that illustrative to me. It's one of these bar graphs. Budget comparisons shows how much kind of the budgets and assessments have gone up compared to one another last year to this year. I tried to say that in words already. So the town budget up a little bit, school budget up a little bit more dramatically. Okay, and anticipated revenue. So this will demonstrate income we have right now if nothing changes. If we leave the mill rate where it is, we're going to have, so the top line shows revenue generated by the mill rate, and it's about $200,000 more this year than last year, and that has to do with new houses, grand list fluctuations, things of that nature. It's not a dramatic shift. We had a dramatic shift last year because we had a revaluation, and this time last year, I was standing here saying, oh, you're going to get a dramatic mill rate reduction, which you did. 3.5 mils last year. That was a lot. That was sounds better than it was. I know my taxes went up after a 3.5 mil decrease because it was almost entirely connected to the revaluation where all our property values went up, and there was a little slice. I'm not even sure how much it was. I'm going to call it a little slice that was sort of some real tax relief on top of that, and it ended up being, that figure. The intergovernmental revenues are up slightly. There was a time not that long ago, Marcel and I are the senior members of the board now in our 8th year somehow, and there was a time 5, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, that certainly Nancy and Lou remember when every year the intergovernmental revenues were in peril, and we were going to get fewer dollars, and we were going to have to spend more things, and for all kinds of reasons, that's not what we're facing now. We'll see what the future brings, but that's not what's happening now. And then other revenues are up. Other is one of our favorite categories on the Board of Finance from all the lines. We never really know what other is. But that, I think one of the things other is, I was talking to someone just when they came in today about the perils of inflation, and for me personally, not ever in my adult life, not living with inflation, and suddenly there's inflation, and it's not good. But nothing's all bad, nothing's all good. We have interest lines that were always sort of an afterthought, and some of these interest lines are actually being populated with real dollars this year. So that may be a reflection of that. So the thing that this chart misses is what that all totals up to be in that middle column. And by my calculation, I think you'll see it probably on the sheets you have, it totals up to be just over $22 million of income at the current mill rate, with all the intergovernmental revenues and with all the so-called other revenues we get. So that sounds pretty good, 22 million. The challenge is, as it stands right now, we're expected to pay 23.6 million. So we're a little short on that, which we'll get to in a second as well. So this is where some of the mill rate challenges are often softened with our general fund balance. And I don't know if there's much more I can add to what the general fund balance is, but it's a combination of the surpluses that we have, and in my mind, the overtaxation that we do in setting the mill rate. So last year we dramatically cut the mill rate. We cut it a little more, which is what I'm calling real tax relief. But the idea that we have extra money in this general fund it's very hard, if not impossible, to find exactly the right spot where you're going to have enough money in the general fund and not overtaxed and not undertaxed. And so what's happened in recent years, at least the last 8 years, if not longer than that, the mill rate's been mostly stable, and it's been low, if not cut. And at the same time, the general fund has been robust, and we've had healthy general fund balances. And I'll talk in a minute about what a healthy general fund balance is. But we've sort of had our cake and eaten it too. We've kept the mill rate low, while at the same time keeping large, if not larger than necessary, general fund balance. So what that does is it allows us to moderate from year to year mill rate fluctuations, expense fluctuations that may come from various sources. And that's what we've done over the years, and that's what we're going to do probably to some degree this year, although we haven't had those full conversations yet. Okay, so I hope everyone can see this chart. If you got a handout, maybe you can see it. This demonstrates sort of where our general fund balance, the top line, where our general fund balance was on June 30th of 2022. So that's the end of our fiscal year, and that's sort of an important snapshot. This is the unassigned general fund balance. This is dollars that the town can use for, I won't say for whatever purpose we want, but for whatever purpose the town meeting decides, mostly. So at the end of 2022, that figure was sitting at almost $5.6 million. So last year, we allocated, that second line you'll see sort of a negative $83,972. That means we decided we would take out of that $5.5 million, $83,972 to sort of stabilize the mill rate. So that's not much. That's kind of, a rounding error basically, but that's what we did. The next line after that, we took out a larger chunk. That's the allocation to the 22-23 capital funding. That's the year we're in right now with, another month and a half or whatever this is, or 2 and a half months till the end of June. That's a larger figure, $561,000. So this year, then the next line, this is the one that no one really knows, but it's our best estimate, the estimated surplus for 22-23. So this is what I was saying before. Even though we lowered the mill rate dramatically last year, and we did for the fourth time this sort of real cut on top of the revaluation, change, we still nevertheless are expecting a significant surplus this year. And quite honestly, we'll see. Check back on on July 10th, we'll know. But, or thereabouts, whenever we get those final numbers. But the $400,000 estimated surplus for this year is a moderate estimate, if not a conservative estimate, meaning with some uncertainties that I'll get to in a second. You never know what the future is going to bring, so don't get me wrong. But this, based on everything we know now, going 3/4 of the way through the year with a couple of months left, and what we expect to come in, the way it normally comes in, and all that stuff. This is what we're presenting to you as the estimated surplus for this year. The next line, that leaves us with what we anticipate our estimated fund balance to be June 30th of this year, which is pretty close to what we started with last year. A couple $100,000 lower. 5.3 million, if it's anywhere close to that estimated surplus. So now the next line shows this. We've had some debate over this. The next line shows a standard line we've had for years and years here, showing this guidance that we're supposed to always have 2 months of reserve ready to go in case whatever happens, in case there's a pandemic, or in case the state budget doesn't pass, or in case this happens or that happens. And so we mostly try and follow that. So we're supposed, according to that guidance, we're supposed to have just under $4 million in this general fund balance. So you can see we got almost 1.5 million more than we need on that. Let's see if I can find this. The Board of Finance also this past year, we think about this a lot, and this is our first year let me say this, we passed a new Board of Finance policy, and it's binding on us, I suppose. And then we'll see what happens. But Marcel Couture, who's one of our members, and you know what, let me pause for a second. I meant to do something in the beginning and I didn't. So I'm Rob Rimmer, I'm the chairman of the Board of Finance. This is Andy O'Neill, Annie Sterna, Marcel Couture, and Sarah O'Brien. Tara Amatruda is also one of our members. She's, I think, on her way, not quite here yet. And again, Marcel and I have been here for a while, but this particular board this year is a fully engaged board. You may or may not like what they've done, but they've all worked hard. They've done their homework. They've come, you know, with all the information and studied and listened and talked to our visitors and debated this this budget back and forth. So it's been a privilege to work with them over this budget season. No offense to past boards of finance, but so the policy that Marcel led us towards, and he looked at other towns to see what they did, and so in addition to this 2-month idea, there's an idea that we should never go below 12% of our general fund. Some towns have a problem with that. No, we don't. Some towns do. But we should also never hold more than 20% of, 12% of our revenue for the subsequent year. So this would be 12% of the expected revenue for next year. We should never go below 12% of that figure in our general fund balance. Again, not an issue for us. Some towns do have that issue. The thing that's more of an issue for us is the sort of ceiling on that, and 20% is the policy that we've set on that. Now my figure is a little bit different than this figure for 2 months. I think it's because I'm looking at next year's revenue, but it's all going to be right around $4 million. Okay, and my figures. Let me back up a second. This is 2 months, so that's right. 3.9 million is correct for 2 months. 20% would be 4.3 million. Okay, so according to our policy, we should not hold more than $4.3 million in our general fund. That means we're holding too many of your tax dollars needlessly. So if we follow our policy, whatever else we do, we should, at a minimum, take like $1 million out of the general fund and use it for something this year. But this is year 1 of our policy, so we'll see if we can adhere to it. So then the next line for 2022 and 2023, there's a TBD line there, unknown contingencies for the remainder of the current fiscal year. So things could still happen that could impact this, and we got a couple of months, and the last whatever number of years, I don't even have to go through a bunch of examples. We all know life is uncertain, and who knows. So this is our best snapshot right now. Who knows what's coming our way? But according to this, at the bottom of that, we would have just under $1.4 million of the general fund balance to apply to our operating budget, capital budget for, in my mind, mill rate relief. Okay, capital budget. So in addition to the operating budget, we have a capital budget. It's dramatically lower this year. People may have different opinions on why it's dramatically lower. I have my opinion. My opinion is because through the work of the current Board of Selectmen and prior Boards of Selectmen, and through the work of the Highway Department, Walt is here, Walt, the roads, we've had a robust road project over recent years to catch up on maintenance of our 75 miles of roads, right? It's our 75 miles of roads in town. And there's always road work to be done, but we've mostly caught up on that. And that was not easy. It cost a lot of money, took a lot of work, and it's kind of been done. It's not like it's over and now we never have to do it again, but those lines in the capital budget that in past years have been large lines are now significantly smaller lines, because that whole project for the work that's been done over the last few years has stabilized all that. So the capital budget this year is dramatically lower than it's been in past years. Let's see. Let me say something else about capital. This is a chart that shows where some of these funds have gone. You'll see road projects, only $800,000. Based on that's correct on what I just said. It's less than it often is. Those are some of the categories that add up to the total $2 million proposed capital expenditures for this year. Okay, so this is the chart that shows how we propose to fund the capital expenditures. So we start out needing $2 million. The next line is transfers from general fund, $1,060,000. Now, just so we're clear about that, that's not the general fund I've been talking about. Those are new tax dollars that you're going to be taxed on this year. There's a line on our operating budget every year that says X amount of dollars going to capital of fresh tax dollars to fund that. So when that says transfers from general fund, that's not the $5 million we were talking about before. That's $1 million of new tax dollars. We got LoCIP funding. I'm skipping one. We got LoCIP funding. That's some state grants, $53,000. And that number looks right, but at the bottom, we're $53,000 short. Okay, that's, for our purposes, kind of balanced. So I skipped the line of ARPA funding, and let's see if I can find this. We didn't really have a chart for ARPA funding, but so as a result of the pandemic, our little town got almost $1.9 million of American Rescue something funds. $1.8 million. Now we have to allocate it all by the end, not by the end of this year, but by the end of next year. And it all has to be spent by, I want to say, the end of 2026. Is that right? I think so. The end of 2026. So now that might not sound like that big a thing, but time's rolling on. I mean, this is our next to last chance to allocate the money. So what the Board of Finance did is we looked at the Board of Selectmen, when they presented their capital budget to us, had allocated a goodly number of items to be paid for by ARPA funds. And then we added to that. So what you see there is a grand total in capital of ARPA funding of almost $1 million, $968,346. Now, when you take that funding combined with allocations that have already been made, that leaves us with a balance of $263,000 to allocate before the deadline next year. And then it's up to the selectmen and the contractors and all that to actually spend it before that bell rings. So that's our proposal on. So anyway, when you taking all that into account with the ARPA funding, with the transfer from general fund, I feel like this is confusing because that's a different transfer from general fund than I was talking about before. But that will leave us with a shortfall of $53,000 for all the capital projects we have planned for next year, which again, they don't all get done all the time, so we're gonna call that balance.
Rob, just
Yeah.
for clarification, that's in excess of $54,000 shortfall.
Whoops. Yeah, so if you just stick with that analysis, that last number, we're 53,880 short.
No, you have expenditures less funding. So a negative is a good thing.
Oh, okay, never mind. It's still balanced for our purposes. Well, that's a good moment to stop. What's next? So we're going to take questions. We're going to take pointers for things I messed up. I'll go to the second line first. The Board of Ed referendum is next Tuesday. So that's you actually come and vote and put your paper through the machine. Lauren Blaha will be here and will help you, I guess. And then we will have, on May 15th, the Board of Selectmen will run the annual town budget meeting to vote on the town budget. And then after that's all said and done one way or the other, the Board of Finance will get together and we will set the mill rate based upon however these budgets come down and whatever our debates are on general fund expenditures and all that. So I'm sure I've forgotten something I wanted to tell you, but that's the overview. Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Comment,
Can everybody hear? Or you want? Okay. I'll walk around the line.
yeah, it's pretty loud.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is a comment. First, an apology. I gave Rob, just before the meeting, an updated request for economic recovery funds on the ambulance. And I was trying to get this to you earlier. I got the information finally over the weekend and got clarification and finished this at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So my apologies for not giving it to you sooner for your consideration. These are capital expenditures. And so the good news is, based on what Rob just said, I can help you either use that capital excess or an additional ARPA expenditure. But what I did and what you have in front of you is we got updated quotes for the Lucas, the chest compression devices, the AEDs, and those prices had gone up since the original economic recovery request. And then on the public access, we had, in the original, requested 7. And in talking to, it came up at that time, but the discussion never went to completion. Besides the 7 that the ambulances placed around town 5 or 6 years ago, extending that a little bit to the ball fields. So we added in for the 2 ball fields here, talked to Park and Rec about that, and we would also give them classes on CPR and how to use them. Nancy asked that we could add in for the transfer station as well. So that's in there. And we have 5 fairly old AEDs that different techs have, and we want to expand the number of techs that have them. So we have as many AEDs around town in knowledgeable hands as we can. And the advantage of doing that at one time is we got a reasonably good volume discount. So the increase of all those things takes the request, which for these items, which was $36,500 up to $62,000, or a $25,500 increase. So I think it's money well spent. I think it's money within the intent of the ARPA funds generally, and I apologize for getting it to you this late, but I would like you to consider approving that and adding it into your budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me say one other thing before someone else makes a comment or question. I'm not sure if whatever I said you think is good news or bad news, but I wanted to impress upon you that I don't know what's going to happen, but I am fearful that your mill rate's going up this year. Hopefully not by a lot, and I don't know how it's really going to play out when it's over. We'll see, but usually at this point in the process, whether I'm right or wrong, I have in my mind a pretty clear thought on how I think it's going to go, and I can usually tell you I think it's going to be stable, or it's going to go down, or whatever. There's a couple of moving parts this year, but if you made me say right now, I would say your mill rate's going to go up, but we'll see what happens. All right, anybody else?
Hi everyone, my name is Holly Louise Perry, and I'm honored to be the new president of the board of directors for the Killingworth Library Association. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to address all of you on behalf of the library. We live in an exceptional, volunteer-driven, all-hands-on-deck town. The people of Killingworth come together in good times and bad for both the big things and the little things. As a newer member of this incredible community, it has been truly amazing to not only witness, but to be a part of this strong sense of togetherness. Our library is no different. We take pride in providing a wide range of resources, programs, and services that enrich the lives of our residents, and none of this would be possible without the unwavering support of our community. I'm truly grateful for the continued support we receive from our town, and I want to express my appreciation to the Board of Finance for their commitment to our library, even in these financially challenging times. At the heart of our library's success is the dedication and hard work of our incredible volunteers and library staff. These individuals tirelessly contribute their time, energy, and passion to create a welcoming and enriching environment for our patrons. They not only maintain the library's operations, but also develop unique programs, provide personalized assistance, and foster a sense of community that makes our library a truly special place. The library's team is dedicated to using every dollar wisely and effectively to ensure that we can continue to provide the best service to our patrons. We are excited about the future and have numerous plans in place for programming, growth, and development. Our vision is to create a thriving library that adapts to the evolving needs of our community, reaching across all demographics while remaining an essential hub of learning, inspiration, and connection. Our library isn't just about books. It's about providing resources, assisting with services, enriching lives through programs, and giving the town a space to accomplish anything we set our minds to. Recently, we celebrated Earth Day by hosting a successful repair cafe, where broken items and computers were fixed, knives were sharpened, with cups of coffee, pastry, and the wonderful live music of the Essex Jazz Trio. This event not only showcased our commitment to sustainability, but also demonstrated the library's role as a community gathering place. Additionally, we have our annual golf tournament in August, which will further financially support the library and its programs. As we look forward to the coming year, we remain steadfast in our mission to serve our community, and we are grateful for the town's support. We have lots in store for our senior programming and have plans to provide more outreach for the older youths of our community. Together, we will continue to create a brighter, more connected future for the residents of Killingworth, all while keeping our town's values at the helm. Thank you again for your time, and I encourage all of you to visit our library, come to our events, and participate in the many programs we offer. And please, if you see our volunteers and staff, take a moment to thank them for their invaluable contributions to our town.
Thank you, Molly.
Hi, I'm Jan O'Sullivan. I'm the treasurer for the Killingworth Libraries, so I'm going to get a little more quantitative. I want to thank you all, the Board of Finance, for your hard work on the town budget again this year. You've been focused on keeping the mill rate down, and you apparently succeeded in keeping it down as much as you can. It's always disappointing to have a budget request cut before going to the public approval process, so I'd just like to note that the $6,500 that was cut from the library's budget request translates to less than 1/100th of 1 mil. In other words, had that money not been cut, the proposed mill rate would be 23.23 instead of 23.22, a difference of 0.01. For us volunteers at the library, $6,500 translates to the amount of money that we work hard to raise every year at a major fundraiser such as our golf tournament, our most labor-intensive event. By the way, it's August 21st, Clinton Country Club. Hope you all of you that are golfers will take that advantage to come, because we have a minimum we have to meet. Anyway, as Holly just said, the library is run by a board of volunteers, and we're even unique in having volunteers at our circulation desk rather than having 100% paid staff. And as we mentioned to you about a week ago, it looks like we're going to have to be hiring more part-timers because it's just harder to get volunteers. Our board has worked hard over the years to raise money to fully fund running the library. It's important for me to say that for each dollar we spend to buy books, pay our staff, heat and cool the building, provide computers, etc., only 72 to 74 cents have come from the town. The other 26 to 28 cents comes from our fundraising efforts, the earnings on our endowment, and until a few years ago, we had rental income of $14,000 a year from a group that used our meeting room every weekday morning. If you think that raising 28 cents on the dollar doesn't sound too bad, let me quantify for you that that amounts to $90,000. The loss of $14,000 of rental income translates to fundraisers of the magnitude of about 2 golf tournaments. We're pretty good at doing a golf tournament, but we can't do 3 of them. So, again, August 21st, Clinton Country Club. The other data that I would like to quantify for you is that libraries in our neighboring towns are funded at higher levels than we are. The Killingworth Library is not a municipal library. We are an association library governed by an independent board. If we were a municipal library, we could expect to be funded at 95%. The other association libraries in our area are funded by their towns at a level of 82 to 86%. If we were funded at that level, I wouldn't be so worried about how we're going to fill a $14,000 permanent hole in our income. are part of the income. Fortunately, our board and the Board of Finance has committed to each other, just last week, that in the near future, we're going to have discussions about these kinds of things when we're not in the thick of budget season. So, and I have, I'm also going to be doing some additional research on how other association libraries are coping. Anyway, I'd also like to mention, this is my new crusade, that like many other organizations in town, we send out an annual fund letter. And I recently learned from Charlie Smith, who's been around when all of these organizations started, that all the annual fund letters that come to you from all of your favorite organizations in town have been staggered by mutual consent, so you don't get them all at once. So I just want to urge everyone here to heed these requests for monetary help, because I don't think any of us is funded fully by the town, and I know the library's not. So, you know, please don't pay more than you're able, but every gift is sincerely appreciated. Whether you pay them as the letters hit your mailboxes so thoughtfully put together by my predecessors and everybody's predecessors, or put them aside and pay them in December, please give them thoughtful consideration. The volunteers who are balancing the budgets of your favorite local organizations will really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all you guys do for the library in the town. Here you go.
Hi, John Byrne, newcomer since 1978. I'm writing a voice, I sent this letter off to the Board of Finance about a month ago. I'm writing to voice my concerns about the recent Killingworth Library Association's budget request that was approved by the Selectmen. As you're aware, the library is an association and acts as an agent of the town providing library services. The requested increase of $76,000, a 38% increase, is not in line with the other government department requests. To give you a little background on myself, in 1995, Nancy Bradley and I were the first appointed town library representatives. In 1997, when the library opened, I was the president of the library board. At that time, the town fathers made it clear that they would only support the library operating budget moving forward with $50,000 a year. A 25% contribution at that time. Today, that contribution has grown to nearly 80%. According to the KLO's website, they are responsible for funding 1/3 of their budget. Their income sources then should be $117,000, not $76,000. I question the 20K endowment fund as one of their income sources. When it was established, a policy was set that the principal is not to be used, and that 10% of the yearly interest could be used for special purposes, but not for operating expenses. As a major financial contributor to the KLA, the town should expect more oversight and transparency as to how the library operates, both in services and in financials. Library minutes, policies, financials, and meeting notices should be posted on the town website. Library board meetings should be open to the public. Looking to the future, perhaps the town should opt for a public library with an elected board of directors. I appreciate your time, and if you would like to further discuss, please contact me. I would also like to add, they have a library director and an assistant library director. Nowhere in the surrounding towns does anybody have an assistant library director. It seems that we're kind of top-heavy in the administration. Also, they committed themselves to a $20,000 yearly consortium with Madison against the wishes of their computer guru who was on the board. That $20,000 could affect a lot of their operating budget. Clinton does not belong to the consortium and is a much bigger library. So right off the bat, just looking at those two items, you could save some money. And maybe cut hours, cut books, do something to live within the operating budget that you have, that the town provides. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments and questions?
I have one. Thanks. My name's Guy Makito, and I'm a Killingworth. I've been here since '81, and I'm really proud of all the volunteers in our town. I go to the library almost every other day, and I appreciate all they do. And it just seems like, in Parmley Farm also, so many volunteers are out there to do so much. And now I'm seeing here where you're cutting the budget on, the volunteer people here, the library and Parmley Farm. And it's really not a lot of money, but to cut that out when all these volunteers do so much hard work to keep the prices down and do all this. And I just believe we should put that money back in for them, for us at Parmley and also for you guys at the library, because they do so much hard work. And to cut that little, to me, it's such a small amount of money. And it's going to affect all the volunteers' attitudes. Because when you volunteer, you think you're doing well, you don't have money, but you have your time. And you figure you're giving your time, and then the time you're giving, it also lets the town give the money to things we need in our facilities. So I just hope you reconsider these cuts and try to restore it for the volunteers in Parmley Farm and for the library also. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just make one comment about, I'll speak for the board for a second, and they can stop me if I'm misstating it, but I think we agree on a lot of things, we disagree on a lot of things, and I think it's fair to say the mood of the board is that, this current board, that what we're trying to do with many of the, I'm not sure what to call them, they're not really non-governmental organizations, but I'll call them non-governmental organizations, library, HK Rec, Youth and Family Services, Parmley Farm, all these things. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do our best to give these groups the money and the resources they need, but also with a view on the mill rate and on the taxpayer. And so what we're trying to do in that is we're trying to get not just budget requests, but actual budget reports from prior years to show what really was spent and what really came in and that sort of thing. And we're having, it's our issue. We're having mixed results. Some groups are doing better, and some we're having to, ask multiple times and that sort of thing. And the other thing we found a few years ago, I'm not sure even how this came to light, but was HK Rec. And HK Rec, as it turned out, had this sort of fund, this sideline fund, where they were aggregating dollars for, I don't know, something, whatever. And it had gotten fairly large, and so we indicated to them, well, we don't want you to drain that, but maybe you could take some of that money and maintain that fund to a certain degree, but also apply that in a more robust way to your annual budget request. So you can still do all the things you need to do. You'll be able to maintain that fund, and it will provide at least some minor relief to the town in terms of what we're doing. And they did it, and it works, and HK Rec is doing all the stuff they do, and life goes on. So it's not that one size fits all, but we're trying to explore those opportunities, those options, those things with some of these other entities. So I'm not going to go through that list here tonight unless you make me, but there was, as Jan said, well, we're going to meet in the, sort of off-budget season and have that conversation with the library, so we appreciate that. I would say one pointed thing maybe about Parmley Farm. Parmley's a little different. Parmley's actually a lot different because it's not, so these other organizations are set up as nonprofits or LLCs or corporations or whatever, and the Parmley Farm volunteers aren't, no problem, that's okay. I want to say the Parmley Farm budget was cut by like $2,600 or something like that. But that's because, and I want this to be clear, we don't want you to have $2,600 fewer dollars to do what you need to do. We know you need those $2,600. It's just that Parmley also has this sort of, I'm not sure what to call it. I'll call it a set-aside fund. I'm sure that's the wrong term, but we're kind of looking for that to come out of that, because that's already raised dollars that could allow you to do what you need to do without draining that. So, and I know it's a small thing, but our budget work is full of small things. So, all right, go ahead.
Just if I may, one issue on the library. Mr. Byrne, we all did receive your letter, and we all did consider it, just so you're aware of that. We also considered when the library came and spoke to us, but just to be clear for people, although it may appear on paper that it's a 38% increase in the library budget, that doesn't ring true. Because last year, we made a commitment to the library. We actually cut their funding by a substantial amount because they had another account that we were asking them to use the money from. They did that, and we committed to them that we were not going to hold them to that lower amount last year. So we actually restored their funding to what it had been. We didn't give them an increase as they requested, but it's not in reality a 30% increase. It looks that way on paper, but we made a commitment last year. They utilized some other funds that they had that we asked them to utilize, and that's where we've come out at on the library. I just want to be clear that it's not actually a 38% increase.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't want to pick on the library either, but we are going to meet with them, and I think we're going to meet with the fire department, and maybe Parliament, if you guys want to meet with us in the sort of off-season now that it's, we have these conversations, the heat of budget season, and they're great conversations, but it's also good to have a conversation in, September or something when the budget heat is on us and you.
Laura Lefko. So I am concerned about Parmalee Farm as well. If Jan said that $23,000 was, what was it, of a mill? What was the statement you made a little while ago? I don't understand what cutting $2,650 out of their budget accomplishes. And I understand that a motion was made to defund them entirely at one of your last several meetings. Parmalee Farm is a town-owned property. Money from their events on the farm pay for the many things in their long-term plan. The mission of the farm is to continue to enhance that property. General upkeep is the town's responsibility. The town continues not to provide them the agreed-upon 12 days of work by the town crew, causing the volunteers to do more of the work. Parmalee Farm is run completely by volunteers. And it's stated in the farm's long-term plan that the dollars in the activity fund are for farm enhancement. So I'm not really sure what the reason is for cutting them $2,650. It just seems like a very small amount. And I'm very concerned about some of the comments that were made at one of your Board of Selectmen meeting, Board of Finance meetings, because someone wasn't happy with the decision that was made about an event there. It almost seems like a little bit of, at least the conversation about defunding them completely seems like a little bit of spite to me. This is our town green, this is our town park, it's all we have. There is nowhere else that grown-ups can go to do anything. This is where we have all our town events. I'm not quite sure why we're sending a message to our volunteers that we appreciate them so little that we're going to take $2,650 out of their budget. I understand that we're trying to cut the town budget in order to offset the mill rate increase caused by the school budget increase this year, another 6%. But I don't understand why we're doing it on the backs of the library and Parmalee Farm. I really, really object to it. I think it's a very bad idea. I think it sends a very, very bad message to our volunteers, and some of the animosity that was at one of your Board of Finance meetings recently really sends a bad message to Parmalee Farm. So I would caution you all in the way that you address them, even if you're not happy with their decisions. They make the best decisions that they can. So that's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I think the Killingworth Town Green is actually that quadrant between Titus Cohen, Ironworks, roast meat. Do any of you live there? You're sort of responsible for keeping that up, I think, but I'm not sure if I'm able to walk around there or not. Is that right, Luke? Did she say good? Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Kathy Moya. I too feel that cuts to groups in town that are basically volunteer-run are a mistake and send a bad message to the volunteers. And I was stunned to find out that Parmalee only asked for $12,600. I know they have another fund, but that's not tax that is volunteer. The efforts and the things that are run on the grounds raise that money, and they have uses for it. If you think of all the buildings there, what can go wrong? What can always go wrong? So I am absolutely in support of restoring those funds.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll be quick, thank you. My name is Scott Hawkins. I am the chairman of the Parmley Farm Committee. And I wanted to appreciate what everybody's comments were. And I understand that the Board of Finance has their job to do, much like any all the other organizations here have their job to do in order to be able to make things happen and work for our community and for our volunteers. We at Parmley Farm are very proud of what we've been able to do there. And we've been consistent over this last several years to be very cautious of how we spend the money, of the taxpayers' money. And I understand that we have what we call our activities fund, which is the money that is raised from events that happen at the farm. It is a fund for which is in our master plan that states that that money is to be for the enhancement and beautification and education projects that go on at the farm. It's not for the basic everyday operating expenses. And I understand that some people take a look at that fund and say, well, why can't you just operate with that dollar amount there? Us as a committee over the last several years have been very cautious in making sure that the projects we dedicate for that fund, for that money, it's going to be all in the best interest of the community, for everybody. Because, trust me, we've had some committee meetings where people come with a big wish list of, I want to do this and we want to do that, but overall, at the end of the meeting, we say, what is the best thing for the community, and that's going to make Parmley Farm a place where people, not only our residents here enjoy, but our residents from around the state come. We not only have school districts from outside the area, from all over, as far as Milford and Orange, do their annual summer planning meetings at the farm. Because they have no place in their town to get some place that's very nice in their town to hold a meeting like that. The other organizations, it's always been my hope that we would have a healthy enough fund to be able to offer to other organizations in town that are on much more limited budgets than, say, we are, to be able to offer them use of the facilities at nothing, at zero if we could. I mean, we would love to be able to do that, but sometimes we have to keep things going. So in order for us to do that, we needed to have the money from the town in order for us to keep our operating expenses. Case in point, Tim and I were there today, spending several hours of our day today doing maintenance work that probably should have been done by somebody from the town, because it was town-owned property equipment. But we want to make sure that we are doing what we can to make sure the town is happy with what happens at the farm. And if you think about it, Parmley Farm is a 132-acre property that we have to manage and maintain for the safety of the citizens and residents and visitors there. And to try and do it with the operating budget that we have is difficult sometimes. And we rely on a lot of the volunteers, not only the volunteers, but also a lot of local businesses that say, what can I do to help? And we said, well, we have a problem with this. I'll have guys there to help you on Tuesday. So overall, we want Parmley Farm to be that place where everybody can come and feel welcome. And it's just just something that I'd love to see going forward. And Rob, I would take you up on your offer on these out of budget season discussions to see what we can do going forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, going once. You guys want to say anything? Okay. All right, well, thank you all for coming. It's great to, have democracy in action. I always like coming to these town meetings and talking to everyone and trying to work out our issues and move everything forward. So we'll take a short recess and then we'll continue with our meeting. Thank you, everyone.